President Xi Jinping announced that China would make full use of the Shanghai Exchange as a platform to carry out won settlements of oil and gas trades. How bad can this be if they're able to accomplish this and this becomes a reality? I mean, obviously, you're seeing, again, China, Russia, Saudi, Iran. Saudi and Iran is like saying Red Sox and Yankees having dinner together and doing business together. That's like saying, hey, Lakers and Celtics at the prime on how peak it. It's like, you guys are willing to get together and do business together, yet at what cost? Anything to go up to see what America's doing right now. China's winning these guys over.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Well, no question about it. So, but why is it that something like this isn't unifying America? And the reason why I want to ask this from you is 9/11 unified us in a way. We're kind of like, listen, I don't care who you voted for, man. That's the enemy, okay? And you're red, white, and blue. You're red, white, and blue. I don't care who you voted for. We're on the same team. Let's roll, okay? COVID was more political because Trump was hated so much where it's like, no, China cannot be the enemy. Trump has to be enemy because we got to get rid of this guy. We had a shot at unifying during COVID to have Dems, Republicans, conservative, libertarians, forget about it. Americans against China. That's the enemy. There was a hesitation to make an outside influence the enemy. It was easier to have somebody like Trump because they didn't want him to do whatever he was working on. Do you think this could be something that unifies us, or no, this is still going to be something that's going to stay divided?
It could be something that unifies us, but it's not going to happen out of the White House because they're not going to talk about this. I mean, the White House, the enemy of the progressive socialist left is anyone that opposes their ideological agenda. Think about this, how interesting it was that during the uprising and the protests in Hong Kong, you had those students there in Hong Kong carrying American flags and singing the national anthem. You can't get kids on our college campus to carry American flags and sing the national anthem because we don't talk about liberty. We don't talk about freedom. We don't talk about totalitarianisms and the purveyors thereof. And we don't have even a president that talks about China is killing and murdering Americans, 18 to 14. What's the number one killer of Americans 18 to 14 right now? I mean, 18 to 45, I'm sorry. It's fentanyl.
Fentanyl.
But we don't have a president that talks about it. We don't have a president that goes down and says that, the drug cartels are, they're a terrorist organization that's pushing human and sex trafficking. That should unite us, human and sex trafficking, the drug trafficking. But that's not the enemy. That's not the issue because what they want is complete, total control of America.
So this is what becomes a concern. I sat down with General McChrystal, I think 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and he's a 4-star, and he's good friends with Obama, and he is a Democrat. He's on the left, and I think his father was a 2-star. Uncles, all this stuff were like 1-stars or colonels and all these things. And then you'll learn. You're like, okay, how do you become a 2-star? There's a difference between a 2-star and a 1-star. 2-star, you need to, a 1-star, you can kind of do your own whatever you need to do to get there, but 2, 3, 4-star, I need these guys to like me to kind of say, yes, you're approved to get this. So to me, the compensation structure is almost structured in a way where you have to compromise your values to get the next level promotion, if that makes any sense.
It does.
So it's set up in a way where I have to be willing to compromise what I love most about this country and what I protected all these years for my own individual legacy, and I go from being a statesman to a politician to, hey, there's no way in the world you can get me to do X, Y, Z. No, listen, if you do that, we'll do this, no problem. And so how much of this stuff is where, a person is sitting there saying, listen, China, if you do this, I want to be a president, just let me do this. How dirty behind closed door does it get where it's holding people hostage over a promotion, holding people hostage over what they know of what you did 17 years ago, holding people hostage of saying, let me tell you what I got about you, what happened 18 years ago. If you don't keep your mouth shut, that's going to come out. How much of that holding hostage happens where somebody, Powell, you're like, what just happened to you? How did you go from this to come? This doesn't sound like the same person here. How much of that happens behind closed doors?
A lot. But it's not just behind closed doors. It happens in open doors. And I think the American people are starting to see that. I mean, it's becoming more and more transparent. Why do you have a chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff making unsolicited phone calls to the general over in China? I mean, back in the day, you get, hauled up for treason. You don't do that. Look, there's too much self-interest and special interest that's hurting the United States of America. And you just brought up something great. We don't have statesmen and stateswomen. We have politicians. And the difference between a statesman and a politician is that a politician is going to tell you what they think you want to hear because they want your vote. But a statesman is going to tell you what you need to hear regardless of the circumstances and the consequences.
Can statesmen get elected today?
And that's the problem. It comes back to us.
The compensation plan is not set up to reward statesmen.
But it's also, our societal model is that we want to be told what we want to hear, what makes us happy, what makes us comfortable. But you've got to be able to look at yourself in the mirror. Look, I was redistricted out of this district that I represented, and I was honored to do it, by Republicans. And I was the first black Republican member of Congress since Reconstruction. Now, you have to ask yourself, why would the Republican Party, the party of Lincoln, the party that freed the slaves and everything, why would they take the first black Republican member from Florida since Reconstruction and redistrict him out? And then I was the number one target for the Democrats in 2012 because people don't want to have folks that have the courage and the conviction to stand up and say what needs to be said. That shines a light on them that they're not comfortable with. And we have got to get to a mature level. Again, it comes back to being adults. Patrick, we got to be mature in America. We got to start looking and saying, AOC, that's the best that we can have. What's her name from Minnesota?
Omar.
Ilhan
Omar. Rashida Tlaib,
Presley. I mean, I can go down the list, and I can go on the other side. But we've got to have people that are concerned. I mean, once upon a time, you could not be president of the United States of America if you had not worn a uniform. If you had not fought in combat, people would laugh at you. Once upon a time, 50 years ago, over 70% of the members of Congress had served in uniform. Today, that number's like 18%.
Get out of here.
I'm not coming on you.
From 17 to 18%?
No, I'm
from 70,
yes.
50 years ago to 18%
Absolutely.
Today.
Go back and look at that. And so, what is happening is that the people that this country trusted, the people that said, I'm going to raise my right hand, I'm going to take an oath to support and defend what? Wow. The rule of law, the Constitution of the United States of America. I'm not taking an oath that says I'm going to support me, my pocket, these special interests that come up here.
You're right, 18.4%. The incoming U.S. House of Representatives will have 80 members who've served in the military at some level, or 18.4% of total membership, according to Pew Research. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing.
But again, that's a reflection of who? Us as the American people. We've forgotten what leadership is. We have forgotten what service and sacrifice and commitment is. That was, yesterday was the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. My older brother came back from Vietnam and took his dress Marine uniform and threw it into the closet. And the most important thing you can say to a Vietnam veteran is welcome home, because they didn't get to hear it. But we have forgotten about those men and women and what they're willing to do, the sacrifices, to the point where now someone can say, who cares that you lost a friend in Afghanistan? Who cares if you lost limbs in Afghanistan? I'm going to give Afghanistan back to the people that you fought to get out of power. Can you imagine what that means to a young man or woman that spent years of their lives over in a place, they saw their buddies die or like I said, lose limbs, and now we put the exact same people back in charge and left them your equipment?
First of all, this is staggering to be thinking about how few people. One of the best things that happened to me, the 2.5 years I spent in the Army as a 63 Bravo Hummer mechanic at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, AIT and boot camp was at Fort Jackson.
101st.
Air assault, life-changing. I went from a boy into a man, and I'll remember Drill Sergeant Pirtle. I befriended him on Facebook. 15 years later, I'm like, do you remember me? Drill Sergeant Green, Drill Sergeant, all these guys, I remember what they did. An 18-year-old kid that's undecided on what to do with their lives, with their career, there's a lot military can do for you. I don't know about today's military. It's slightly different today with what they're doing.
Totally different.
Very different than when I went, and I like the fact that they were screaming, hollering, challenging you, trying to mentally break you down to see
be all you
how
can
tough
be.
you can be, all that you can be in the Army. But here's a question. So it's easy to sit there and say Democrats, 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 socialists, 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 all these guys. Okay, I'm a business guy. When I lost market share in an area I would say, what did we do wrong to lose that market share? You know, like, what did we do? Like, you're saying this as well. The first thing you talked about is it's on us, Pat. It's on you and I. What do we do? Why are we allowing this thing to happen, right? But some people may say, dude, I'm not Karl Rove, who was the strategist. I'm not, you know, Dave, who was the George Bush, the guy that was a heavyweight guy for many years. I'm forgetting his name. A book was written about him, phenomenal book, who was his chief of staff. I think the chief of staff for President Bush. What was his name? Anyways, I'll think about the name. I'll tell you the name. You know exactly who I'm talking about. What is? Anyways, I'll put it up. I'll give you the name. These guys were strategists behind closed doors. You know, these guys could take somebody and bring them up, and they're saying, "Hey, we should do this or we should do that." You saw this week we were talking about Silicon Valley companies, how Larry Ellison and 5 of these other companies all use the same word to say, moving forward, you're working from office or you're not, because we need a collaborative environment for you to work out of the office. You can't do it through Zoom. Those guys had a conversation together and said, guys, we got to use a similar word, collaborative. You see these channels that say, you know, the same phrase, and you see one video, one reporter says it, then 9, then this, and they're all saying the same thing. Where did Republicans lose it? What strategy? Because Democrats outflanked. They had a better strategy than Republicans, where their offer was more attractive to people the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Did Republicans sit on the sidelines? Were they getting casual? Did they get soft? Did they not really value the enemy? Did they think the enemy is not that important? Did they have a blind spot? If they did, where was that?
You know, I just finished a book that was written by a Republican California State Senator H.L. Richardson. It's called Confrontational Politics. You know, right now it is less, Patrick, about Republican or Democrat. It's less about political parties. It is more about philosophies of governance. The United States of America was founded on a very incredible revolutionary premise that the individual is supreme and sovereign over the institution of government. Now, we have people that believe that the institution of government, being at the federal, state, local levels, are supreme and sovereign over the individual. That they make decisions based upon that. They're more so concerned about how do we make the individual wedded to us, how do we make the individual dependent upon us, and you can look at the policies that come forward. We have got to get to the point where we go back and talk about individual rights, freedoms, liberties, and we have been lacking in that. We are always chasing the other side, the left. And you know, one of the things the Army taught me, you can carry your 3x5 cars around, because you know, Army guys ain't really smart. Air Force guys are real smart. They don't need 3x5 cars, but Army guys got to carry around 3x5 cars. And let me just share this quote with you. This quote is from the 1950s. The uncontested absurdities of today are the accepted slogans of tomorrow. They come to be accepted by degrees, by dint of constant pressure on one side and constant retreat on the other, until one day when they are suddenly declared to be the country's official ideology.
Wow.
1950s Ayn Rand. And that's what is happening. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about the last 50, 60, 70 years, slowly but surely, this little incrementalism. We keep creeping along. We destroy the family. We take over Hollywood. We take over the media. You know, we take over every aspect of our operating culture. Now we take over the military. And this is where we find ourselves. And so we don't, you know, we may be successful in a political cycle, but we're up against people, being in China, Russia, whomever, and also people here in the States. They don't think in political cycles. They think the 300-meter target. You remember when we used to go to the rifle range, you had the 25-meter target out to the 300. They think about the 300-meter target.
If not longer, by the way.
If not longer. Yeah. But they will, you know, make sure that the 25-meter target, they're proficient at it, and they will to go out to the
Xi and Putin say 100 years.
Absolutely.
They're not going to be alive in 100 years.
They don't care.
Look how proud.
They're not going to be alive in 25.
But the point is, look how proud they are of their country.
Yep.
That it is their country. They're not going to let somebody else come and be above it over their own lives. 100 years is what they're talking about.
And we are what, 246 years old as a nation?
43 now. 247. I think, right? 2023.
Yeah, 2023. Well, yeah.
You said something very important. You used the phrase cultural Marxism. And cultural Marxism really has 2 tenets. And the first tenet is there is no absolute truth. And the second tenet is that the state is supreme. So when you take those 2, Pat, they're so simple to say, and you can put everything follows underneath it. And it says, how do you break? You break religions. Okay, no absolute truth.
Yep.
The state is supreme. That's how you break family. That's how you break the authority of parents. That's how you have the authority over kids. Those are the two truths. And I look at it, and I was reading this week because we were looking at all this stuff, and I'm like, who is telling the person that is coming to the United States today to immigrate, the political refugee or whoever they are, they're coming to this American ideal. So somewhere in the world, there is still this concept of freedom and liberty and enablement, and I want to go to America because they're still coming here. And I don't mean the ones that are being trafficked here, southern border. I'm talking about ones that still legitimately want to come here for what it is. Out there in the world, there is a greater reputation of America than we have among ourselves.
Mm-hmm. I had Gordon Chen on during COVID, 2.5 years. He used to live he was a lawyer in China, I think, for like 20 years or something like that. He said the one number that's changed, Tom, a little bit to pay attention to is before, kids would come from other countries here and they would go to school here and then they would say, damn, this place is great. And then they would stay here. Versus now, kids are coming here to our schools, learning what we're teaching them, and now they're taking what we taught them back to their countries.
Yeah.
So meaning the brightest are no longer staying, they're going back. That's the argument that he was making, that they're now able to bring them back to their country versus before. Now, you can look at the statistics of China. Their net migration right now is negative. They're losing people. I don't know if you saw the stats for 2022. It wasn't a good look. Mm-hmm. They're losing people. So is Russia. Russia lost a lot of people that left them as well. So some can say statistically, Russia, there it is. So current net migration rate for China 2023, minus 0.256 per thousand population, a 0.79 increase from 2029. Net migration for China. Do you have the one for Russia as well? Because I think both of them are down. They're not looking good.
By the way, while you're looking this up, remember, this comes out of readily available country information. The actual truth of these numbers is probably higher because China and Russia are skewing down the numbers they report.
Well, you have 2022. What you don't have is 2020. 2022 was 0.78 per thousand, a decline of 14.42%. And, it's going to be higher this year as well, obviously, with what's going on there. But America is still that country. But, sometimes when you're Mike Tyson and you go into a ring, people are shivering. They're shaking. They're like, oh, my God, It's Mike. And you're debating, do I buy this pay-per-view or not because it's going to be less than 30 seconds? Is it worth it? And guess what, guys? If you're going to come over to watch the fight, bring dominoes, bring Scrabble, bring spades, because we're probably going to be playing cards. We're only going to be watching a fight for less than a minute, okay? And then this guy shows up that he proved that Tyson is human. Buster Douglas, right? Yeah. And he comes in like, this guy can be beat? What are you talking about, right? And then next thing you know, Holyfield, a couple other guys, they're like, I can get him. John Jones has proven he's the scariest man in the world. He looked out of shape this time. Some people said, there's no way this guy's going to beat, Gagne or whatever, yeah. And I was kind of like concerned because I'm like, I've not seen this guy be this heavy for a long time. Yeah. Boom, what does he do? Wasn't even close, right? They still fear this man. The problem with America is if America was a fighter, the last few years, America's had losses in the ring and people don't fear America anymore. And we've allowed that to become a reality. That's my only concern. When you walk into a bar and everybody knows you are America and everybody kind of like, hey, guys, listen, U.S. is here. Now it's kind of like, hey, what's up? How you doing? You want a drink? Get them a drink on us. Yeah, you don't talk to America like that. Now they are.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.